Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Pilot's Inner Circle on Flight Training Radio, where a good pilot is always learning. Now, here's your host and certified flight instructor extraordinaire, Jason Shepard.
Hey everybody, Jason Shepard here of M0A.com, and welcome to Flight Training Radio Live, a part of the Pilot's Inner Circle. We are 110% live, and right now if you guys have any questions, you can ask those questions by simply calling in. The number to call in is 877-537-6704. That number is toll-free. Also, I've got a window for Facebook and a window for Twitter open right now, too, so you guys can ask your questions there as well. And as I mentioned before, this is part of the Pilot's Inner Circle, which you can learn more about at pilotsinnercircle.com. You can learn and see if membership is for you there. What you're listening to right now is the free portion of that podcast. What we'll do in about 30 minutes after we get done with this, we go to the paid members only portion of that, where members are able to listen and earn FAA wings credit just for simply listening to this podcast. So they earn their FAA wings credit, also get access to a ton of other great stuff, such as webinars. Speaking of that, there's a webinar tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so make sure you guys are on that for my members. In addition to both private and instrument pilot ground schools and just a ton of other great bonuses in there. You can learn more about that by going to pilotsinnercircle.com. And again, any questions, 877-537-6704. You can call in. I'll be happy to get you on there, and we'll probably take those questions right after the commercial break. So anyways, it is Thanksgiving week. I'm thankful for you guys. You guys are awesome. Again, I always talk about you are the reason we get up and do what we do every day. So I'm thankful for you guys. Been a busy week. Been busy getting ready for the aviation seminar at sea, setting sail December 2nd. So I've been busy packing and preparing and getting all that sort of stuff ready to go. So very excited about that. For any of you that want to be last minute, we still have room. For any of those of you that are planners, it'll be around the same time again next year. So something you can plan. Going to St. Martin to sit on Airport Beach, watch planes fly over, a bunch of aviation seminars during our days at sea. It is going to be a really just a great aviation-themed event. So I'm excited to meet a lot of you guys and see a lot of you guys on that trip/seminar/vacation. So that'll be fun. Anyways, my point of talking to you guys today is to share this, and it is VFR flight following. VFR flight following really is one of my favorite services. It is the closest you can get to flying IFR as just a simple VFR pilot. You literally work into the IFR system, and you get great traffic updates and help with navigation and airspace and some limited weather. They have limited weather capabilities that they can help you with, but their primary focus is traffic. And I always tell my students, you know what? It only takes flight following saving your butt once to make you a believer. And it's that one time you're flying and they call out, traffic 12 o'clock, same direction, suggest an immediate, right turn 20 degrees, and you turn and you miss that airplane that just goes skirting past you, 1,000, 1,500 feet away, and you go, man, I'm really glad I was talking to VFR flight following, because that person wasn't and I was. Imagine if we both weren't talking. It could have been a real predicament. And it's such a great service, but too many times I find students are a little bit nervous when it comes to picking up VFR flight following. And for my Pilots Inner Circle members, I've got a great checklist and script I'll share with you guys so you can really see everything I'm talking about here. But for now, let's go over it real quick. So I've really broken down getting VFR flight following into 7 really simple steps. And again, this is all on the checklist. If you guys are taking notes right now, you can write this sort of stuff down. And the first thing first is to find and tune to the proper frequency. Again, it sounds so simple, but for some people you'd be surprised. Finding the proper frequency, this is something you can do on ForeFlight. This is something you can do by going to airnav.com. This is something you can pick up on the sectional chart or in your AFD, Airport Facilities Directory. So these are all things you can pick up there. You need to find the right frequency first and foremost. That makes sense. Let's talk about step 2. Step 2 is probably the second most important step, and that is to listen. These controllers are some of the busiest controllers in the nation. Okay? The ones you're going to be talking to. Busier than any, most little Class Delta Tower controllers. These approach and center controllers deal with the big stuff. You'll be flying around, you'll hear Delta and Southwest and JetBlue and everybody calling in. Here you are flying around your little Cessna 172 and Cessna 150. I think it's a cool thing. But the most important thing to do is to listen first and foremost, because you don't know if there could be an emergency happening on that very frequency, and you don't want to be stepping in when they're trying to make calls to that aircraft in distress. So the first step is to listen. Listen and wait for your proper time to chime in. Wait for that clear air. And then when you do have that clear air and that radio space is yours and you're ready to claim it by pushing that button down, it's the third step. And this is the most important step, and it is the step that so many not just students, all sorts of pilots neglect, and that is the cold call. Again, these controllers are some of the busiest controllers you will ever talk to. They are not required. VFR flight following is not a mandatory or required service. They are required to talk to IFR traffic. They are not required to talk to you as a VFR pilot. They are doing you a favor. The FAA calls it, they can give you VFR flight following on a time permitting basis. So let's make sure their time is valuable to them. The first step is to do just that. It is to cold call. What is a cold call? A cold call is very simple. You acknowledge them, followed by who you are. For example, Jacksonville Approach, Cessna 512 Romeo. That's it. That's your cold call. I am trying to get their attention. Too many times students go off and they just simply go, Jacksonville Approach, Cessna 512 Romeo. I'm 5 miles north of Ocala Airport, 3,500 feet. Like VFR flight following to Daytona Beach, please. And the controller simply comes back and goes, I'm sorry, who is calling again? And you just wasted all that, valuable airtime effectively. And it really, it's an unfortunate situation. Cold call them, get their attention. They are on the phone line. They are sometimes managing other frequencies. They are trying to coordinate so much stuff. Get their attention first with that cold call. So Jacksonville Approach, Cessna 512 Romeo. And I wait. I just sit there and wait for them to come back and say, Cessna 512 Romeo, Jacksonville Approach, go ahead. And by the way, obviously, I don't mean to be like babying you sounding, but Jacksonville Approach is not everybody. You got to know your approach controller's name. So Cessna 512 Romeo, Jacksonville Approach, go ahead. So you wait for them to come back and simply acknowledge you. Great. So I've cold called them. I've got their attention. I know I've got their attention because they came back and said, Cessna 512 Romeo, Jacksonville Approach, go ahead. And this is where it can get a little bit difficult. This is where we fall into what's called the primary call. All right? In your primary call, you need to obviously address the facility again, example, Jacksonville Approach, followed by your tail number, Jacksonville Approach, Cessna 512 Romeo, just like your cold call. So you're almost saying your cold call over. And then you need to answer the following. For my note takers, here's what you need to write down. You need to answer where you are, what altitude, and where you want to go. With that information alone, they can get you set up in the VFR flight following system. Where you are, what altitude, and where you want to go. So, for example, we are 5 miles north of the Ocala Airport at 3,500 feet. I'd like VFR flight following to Daytona Beach, Delta Alpha Bravo. And again, I never make assumptions that just because I'm talking to a controller who controls that local area, for example, Jacksonville and Daytona are fairly close in the grand scheme of things, I never just assume they know what Daytona is or their identifier or where Daytona is. Got to remember, these controllers take jobs where they can. They travel all around the United States taking jobs necessarily where they can. They could have just transferred from California and have no clue where Daytona is or what its identifier is. So I always tell them Daytona Beach, Delta Alpha Bravo, or whatever the airport I'm going to with its identifier. So the proper radio call would be Jacksonville Approach, Cessna 512 Romeo's 5 miles north of the Ocala Airport at 3,500 feet. I'd like VFR flight following to Daytona Beach, Delta Alpha Bravo. That's it. I sit and I wait from that point. 9 times out of 10, that controller's not going to need any more information. Occasionally, they will come back and say, what kind of aircraft are you? But that's why we have that Skyhawk, 1, 2, 3, 4, or Skylane 5, 6, 7, 8, or whatever your tail number is. Now, you got to remember too, these controllers aren't all pilots, so they may not know that a Skylane is a 182 and a Skyhawk is a 172. They may not know that sort of stuff, just yet. But they're going to learn all that, of course. So they may come back and ask you for that, but that's really the only thing. Now what you're waiting for is for them to come back and give you a squawk code to put in your transponder. This is where you need to have the pen and paper ready. You guys know I'm a big fan of having the knee board out. I don't care if it's the iPad, you've got ForeFlight, you've got the scratch pad ready, it doesn't matter. You need to be ready to copy something down. Because after you give them that big long spiel that you'd like VFR flight following, they're going to come back and say, Cessna 512 Romeo, squawk 4323. And you're simply just going to read that back. 4323, 512 Romeo. I want to emphasize something here that's really important. Obviously, as they're set, picture this. They just came back and said, Cessna 512 Romeo, squawk 4323. And as they're saying that, I'm writing down 4323. And I'm writing that down, and then I'm reading it back to them. When I read it back, and this will help you with anything radio communication-wise, always read back what they told you first. Here's what I mean by that. Read back 4323 Cessna 512 Romeo rather than saying Cessna 512 Romeo, squawk 4323. Always read back what they told you first. Why? Because psychologically, you're more likely to remember what they just told you instantly rather than if you mixed in some other numbers like 512 Romeo. The important thing here is you're never going to forget who you are. Who you are is always plastered right in front of you on that instrument panel. So you may not forget who you are, but you will forget what they just told you, which was squawk 4323. So I always read back 4323 Cessna 512 Romeo, reading my name back last. That way, while what they just told me is on the top of my mind and the top of my paper, I have all that because I'm never going to forget who I am. Does that make sense? So now, they've done that. Cessna 512 Romeo, squawk 4323. 4323, Cessna 512 Romeo. I'm putting it in my transponder. Good. If they tell me to ident, I know what that means. That means push the little ident button. That's simple, okay? So 4323, and again, it's a waiting game. I wait. I'm just going to fly. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I am waiting for the magic words that I am what? I am radar contact. Usually it's a brief pause. It depends really, honestly, how busy they are. But once a controller finds you in his or her system, once they see 4323 pop up on their radar screen. They can assign that to Cessna 512 Romeo, who's a Cessna 150 at 3,500 feet going to Daytona Beach, Delta Alpha Bravo. They can type all that stuff in, so not only they'll have it, but the controller they're going to pass you off to next has it, and so that Daytona Tower has it. So everybody is covered, and my information is getting relayed to the next person. So after that, I am waiting for them to tell me that all of that has been done. And what that is, that's called establishing radar contact. They have identified you on their radar screen. So you're waiting for them to come back to you. And they're going to come back to you by simply saying, Cessna 512 Romeo is radar contact 7 miles north of the Ocala Airport, Ocala altimeter 29.908. Now, out of that entire big radio call, what on earth needs to be read back? Well, does the fact that I'm radar contact need to be read back? No, not really. I know that. I don't need to tell them that I know that. That's fine. I'm 7 miles north of the Ocala Airport. Sure, that's correct. And the Ocala altimeter is 29.908. Where's the new information in there? The new information is the altimeter setting, and that's what needs to be acknowledged. So the controller and I are both on the same page. Ocala altimeter 29.908. Or I usually just read it back, 29.908, 512 Romeo, thank you. And I'm set. I am good to go. I am established VFR flight following. Now, this does not mean kick the chair back a notch, bust out the magazine or the book and just relax the rest of the flight. Just because someone else is watching you, it doesn't mean you stop flying the airplane. It's just nice to have an extra person watching you from that top-down perspective to help you with traffic alerts. You got to remember, their primary focus is traffic and airspace. They are not weather reporters. Their radar screens, they will tell you, can only see precipitation. So they're not going to help you a whole lot with cloud cover. This is the sort of stuff you have to be vigilant for. You just have to know that it's great to have that extra pair of eyes watching you and helping you and someone else having your back. Okay? So that is it's a nice thing to have. So let's go through this real quick. Here is how it would look. Here's how it would look. Here is how it would. I'm so used to doing webinars. I'm used to people seeing my screen and hearing me talk. Here is how this would sound. I'm simply going to call them up. Jacksonville Approach, Cessna 512 Romeo. And I'm going to wait. That was my cold call. I'm waiting for them to come back. Cessna 512 Romeo, Jax Approach, go ahead. Here comes my primary radio call now. Jacksonville Approach, Cessna 512 Romeo is 5 miles north of the Ocala Airport at 3,500 feet. I'd like VFR flight following to Daytona Beach, Delta Alpha Bravo. And again, I'm going to wait a little bit because I know the next thing is them telling me my squawk code. Cessna 512 Romeo, squawk 4323. We'll read that back. 4323, Cessna 512 Romeo. As I put that in my transponder, I'm simply going to fly and wait till they come back. Cessna 512 Romeo is radar contact 7 miles north of the Ocala Airport, Ocala altimeter 29.908. 29.908, 512 Romeo, thank you. And you're set. You're established VFR flight following. And guys, for my members, again, I've got this whole script. I've got this whole checklist. Literally, it's a fill-in-the-blank script. If you felt like I was talking too fast or missed some notes, literally it's fill in the blanks and say this and do this. Couldn't get any simpler than that. And that's for the members. You guys will be able to see that once this all gets published here. So that's that. VFR flight following, an awesome, awesome service. A service that you should be using. I mean, I use it for the silliest little flights. I used it for a flight 20 nautical miles south to the Brooksville Airport. And it was flying back from Brooksville back to, I think we were going to Denellen at the time. Flying back, we missed an airplane, thanks to flight following, by probably about 500 feet. He passed about 500 feet below us, and he was climbing. Would we have probably missed him without VFR flight following? Probably. But would I have gotten a little bit nervous when I saw an airplane pass, that low or that close underneath of me while he was climbing? It was a big, probably like a Cessna 340 or somebody fairly large. Wasn't talking to anybody. And thankfully, we were on VFR flight following. Just short little flights like that. It behooves you to have somebody else having your back and just watching out for you, especially from a traffic standpoint. I know it's a big sky, but you have to be safe at all times in those circumstances. So anyways, guys, we're going to take a quick little commercial break, and then I'm going to get to your questions. If you have any questions and you want to chat live, right now you can call in 877-537-6704. That number is toll free, so we can chat. We can get you on the line. One more time, 877-537-6704. Call in. That way we can chit-chat. Also, I've got Twitter open, so you can hit me up. I am at M0A. That is spelled out. The spelled out version of it, MZEROA. So that's that. And also on Facebook. You can post something on my Facebook wall so I can see your questions there as well. So 877-537-6704. Guys, we're going to take a real quick commercial break, and then we're going to go ahead and get right to your questions. So chat with you guys back here in just a second. Are you prepared for an engine failure on takeoff? What if there was runway remaining? What if there isn't? Would you know what to do if you lost radio communications in IFR conditions? My newest book, In-Flight Emergencies, a step-by-step guide to handling the unexpected, will cover all of this and more. Readers learn about a topic such as engine failures on takeoff. Then at the end of the chapter, there's a URL where they can go and watch a video of an actual engine failure on takeoff and see how the pilot applied the skills mentioned in the book. We're adding videos you love to the books you need, because a good pilot is always learning. Check out the book at inflightemergencies.com.
Hey there, quick question. What would you do if you lost your logbook? Imagine having to go back in time to track down all of those hours, dates, aircraft flown, and airports landed at. It's near impossible. Trust me, I've done it. Welcome to Runway Log, the best online pilot logbook that lets you log flights on your iPhone, iPad, or Android device. Attach photos to certain entries and see where you've been with our interactive map. Best of all, it's backed up every hour and fully exportable to CSV or PDF. Runway Log has your back. It even sends reminders when your flight review is due. Don't wait another second. Start your free trial of Runway Log today. Visit runwaylog.com.
The Pilot's Inner Circle is more than just a ground school. It's a community.
And I want to thank you for all that you're doing. You're going to grow this show. You're going to be the most popular and best instructor in the nation because you focus on people and learning. You're sincere, you have integrity, and you have character. And your wife is a great gal, too.
Members get a chance to interact with me and others each and every week live in the radio shows like the one you're listening to now, or every Monday evening in the mock check rides and weekly workshop webinars that we do.
Jason really does a wonderful job teaching his students all the basics you're going to need to help pass your written test as well as your practical tests. Once you're a member, the online seminars every week. This is really a big key as far as my training was concerned, because there's those nagging questions, exactly what does this do, what does that do?
With a 100% pass rate and over 1,000 check rides passed, what's not to love about the Pilot's Inner Circle? Members also get FAA Wings credit for listening to this very radio show you're listening to now, in addition to the extended version. So what's not to love? Visit pilotsinnercircle.com to become a member today. Alrighty guys, Jason back with you. A bunch of callers on the line. Not going to make anybody wait any longer than they have to. What are the odds here? We have two Ricks from California. So first things first, we're going to go to my buddy Rick Bronstein, who wants to talk about filing a flight plan. Rick, my friend, how are you doing?
Recovering from last week's fiasco. But,
I read your email. I completely understand. And we'll chat about that. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
So, anyways, what's your question?
And that's okay to make public, by the way, just the I'm safe issue. But this is more to the point of a flight following versus filing a flight plan.
Sure.
I love flight following. Every time I've soloed anywhere, I felt so good to know that somebody else was helping watch out for me. Mm-hmm. And when I got lost, I just said, hey, where the hell am I? And they told me.
Right.
But when would you file a flight plan versus just getting flight following?
I'll tell you, they make us teach filing a flight plan, which is it's a great service, but as you know, you don't have that communication aspect of it. The only purpose of filing a flight plan is if you don't report home effectively. And I'll give you a great example. And actually, it was when we did Flying Across America, heading to your neck of the woods. Literally crossing over Death Valley and all this sort of stuff. There was no VFR flight following. My airplane couldn't climb high enough to even think about picking up VFR flight following. If we went down, nobody was going to find us. I mean, that sounds, all doomsday and everything. But that's when we filed a VFR flight plan, when there was nobody else to talk to. And if I don't land at whatever airport I'm going to and close my flight plan within 30 minutes of that time frame, they're going to come looking for me. And that's just a nice way of covering my back. Now, you need to understand, flight following is not filing a VFR flight plan. Now, hopefully, if you have a problem, you're talking right to somebody right then and there, and they're going to be able to dispatch somebody to come out and help you. But the only situation I actually file a true VFR flight plan is, well, first off, we're going to the Bahamas where we have to file a DVFR flight plan. And if I'm going to be going somewhere remote, whether it be flying over the Everglades, more geographic to me, in your neck of the woods, maybe you're heading out towards the east and you're crossing over that kind of Death Valley kind of area where you're just literally not going to be able to talk to anybody because the capability is just not there yet. Your airplane just won't climb high enough to do that. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense to me. I'm not to the point of my flying career that's become an issue,
right?
But maybe one day it will become an issue.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to thank you for all that you do.
I want to thank you, Rick, and I hope to see you on the webinar tonight. We can chat more about your fiasco, too, okay?
Fair enough. Thanks, Jason.
Cool, Rick. Have a great day. See ya.
You too.
All right, now let's jump over to the next Rick over in Los Angeles who wants to talk a little bit about long cross country and handoffs from one station to another. Rick, my friend, how are you doing?
I'm good, and hello to the other Rick. We know each other.
Oh, no way! What are the odds of that, huh?
We're in the same flying club.
Oh, very good.
And in regard to like a long cross country where you're going to be handed off from one station to another, what is generally the protocol? Once you're connected to flight following, will they automatically hand you off, and you don't really have to say too much? Or do you need to check in every time you get handed off and tell them altitude or position?
You're spot on with this. You do need to check in. Now, it's one thing to remember. Once you get VFR flight following, like I said earlier, it's not time to kick the seat back a notch, bust out the magazine, and relax. You've got to know that eventually they're either going to give you a traffic update or they're going to do just what you said. They're going to want to hand you off. So you're flying, you're talking to Los Angeles, whoever you're talking to, and now they're going to pass you off to Burbank. So they're going to tell you, Cessna 1234, contact Burbank Approach on 118.6. Okay, great. You come back to them, Burbank Approach 118.6. Again, you've got your pen in hand, you're ready to take notes. And if not, you're going to be bugging them saying, hey, can you say that again? But no big deal, though. So now we flip-flop over to Burbank Approach, and this is something important, too. I'm going to talk about the members here in just a little bit. Save that last frequency. You are talking to another human at Los Angeles. If for some reason you go to Burbank and nobody's there, you can at least fall back on Los Angeles and say, hey, wait a second, guys. I tried to call Burbank and nobody was there. So cover your butt from that standpoint. Now, when you go to Burbank Approach, you're simply going to check in, let them know you're with them, and at what altitude. So Burbank Approach, Cessna 1234, with you, level 3,500 feet. And all they're going to simply do is come back and give you an altimeter setting. Cessna 1234, roger, Burbank altimeter 29.9 or 2. 29.902, Cessna 1234. It's just that simple, but you have to be ready, each and every time for that handoff. And when you begin to fly these same routes over and over, you're going to learn, when they hand you off. So hopefully that answers your question there. Anything further on that?
Just one more quickie. Sure. The Squawk Code, if I'm flying cross country, literally, from Los Angeles to New York, in theory, I would stay on the same Squawk Code the entire trip?
In theory, that's correct. However, I know from doing a similar trip like that being flying across America, heading to your neck of the woods, they changed our Squawk Code quite a bit because what happens is these controllers operate within blocks of Squawk Codes. This guy gets from 4,300 to 4,400, and those are his blocks to pass off. However, as you get passed off more and more, you may have the same Squawk Code as another airplane. They're going to say, wait a second, we can't have two Squawk Codes. That doesn't work in our computer system. So they'll ask you to squawk a new code. And again, it's just you have to always be vigilant from that standpoint. There's no, reading a magazine and putting on autopilot and kind of kicking back. You know what I mean?
Good. Thank you so much, Jason. Appreciate the help.
Cool. No problem, Rick. Have a great day, okay?
You too.
All right. See ya. All right. Another a comment here from my good friend in the close to the Great White North. I bet you it's really cold up there right now, is my buddy Larry. Larry, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing great. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, my friend. What's up?
What I was going to do is I was just going to make a few comments. Usually when I start introducing this, I usually do it when I'm starting to do VOR tracking because I'm really close to some Class Bravo airspace. So what I do is I actually pull out an en-route chart and kind of show the students where the minimum altitudes are so to make sure if they go below that, they may not get any kind of radar contact. The other thing is for positioning. I always actually try and have them measure a VOR that's really close. There's one probably about 10 miles just northeast of us. So if they're on like a long cross country, I'll have them say, okay, measure like 10 miles on the 220 radial coming off of the Salem VOR. And that really helps a lot when they're contacting the controller because it really makes them sound professional and it's a lot easier to communicate.
I'll tell you, and the two things you mentioned there are huge things. I'll be talking, like you said, working with a student to get, and Larry, for those of you who don't know, Larry is a CFI up in the Michigan area. So when I am teaching this, like you said, Larry, it's tough to teach someone how to explain where they're at. I love your VOR method. That's smart. Another method for those of you that might have a 430 or something like that is simply to press the nearest button. A lot of times it'll tell you you're, 5 miles northwest of X airport. Now that's a little bit of a cheater way to do it, but it accomplishes the same thing. I love the VOR positioning, Larry, and I love what you said too about the low altitudes. That's something I'm going to talk about a little bit later with the members. And this kind of relates to Rick in Los Angeles' comment about, what happens when you get dropped. You're being handed off, but what happens if they drop you? Well, why did they drop you? Well, it could be, Larry, like you said, maybe you're at an altitude that just doesn't permit radar coverage. Oddly enough, in today's, 2.0 world, that there would be dead spots in radar coverage, but there is. Interesting stuff. I appreciate that. Anything else you want to add in there?
Well, I just had two more. I'm sorry.
No, go for it, man. No, you're fine. Go for it.
Well, the other thing is when they're pointing out traffic to you, what I do is I always go 30% or 30 degrees on each side to say you have traffic at 2 o'clock because they're kind of they're used to IFR traffic, so they're looking at 5-mile separation. Now, if you try and figure what a 737 compared to a Cessna 152 looks like, I make sure that, they know that they're 5 miles away. It's really kind of hard to spot, and especially when the summertime and actually now in the late fall, early winter, the sun is really low, so you're seeing a lot of glare. And so I make sure that they do their due diligence and make sure they look for that traffic, even though it's going to be kind of hard to see.
Smart. I like that a lot. And I find that, too. They tell you traffic 1 o'clock, and by the time you see it, you're like, no, that's more like 3 o'clock. I can't tell you how many times students, they tell them traffic 2 o'clock, and they look at their watch, and they go, 2 o'clock's that way. Okay. It's kind of funny. But anyways, Larry, what's your last comment here?
The last one, it's great practice if you want to go for the IFR rating because you're actually kind of in the system, but you're not on like an IFR flight plan. So it gets them into talking very concise, and it they finally find out these are real people that just want to help you.
Oh, you're exactly right. And I can't tell you, I wish I never did a lot of VFR flight following as a private pilot, as a student pilot or as a private pilot. And I don't know any private pilots that don't have a goal of at one point becoming an instrument pilot. And this is one of the fastest ways to help that training along. I mean, I tell students all the time, IFR flying is two things. It's books and it's communication. You can already fly the heck out of that airplane or you wouldn't be a private pilot. If you can get the knowledge in your head and get that to come out of your mouth to articulate it to a controller and a check ride examiner, you're going to be A-OK. So starting now and understanding how VFR flight following works, like you said, Larry, is going to give you a huge leg up and probably save you a few $1,000s on your instrument rating. That's just the honest truth. So, Larry, my friend, I appreciate your comments. I hope you will set some time aside tonight to be on the webinar as well.
I will be there. Can't wait.
Cool, Larry. You have a great day, and go save some lives today, okay?
Okay, thanks.
All right, Larry, I'll see you. Cool, guys. Let me check Facebook and Twitter real quick, make sure you don't have any questions pending there. And then we will wrap this thing up. Let me scroll here. Let's see here. Few things on Facebook. Let me see. What am I doing time-wise here? Let's see if I can knock all this out in about 10 minutes. Let's see. Tony, reading your question. Maybe we kind of answered that. Tony was talking about, can I talk about minimum altitudes to request flight following? He was turned down when he was flying from Nashville to Chicago at night, kind of felt abandoned. Whew, I know the feeling. Nighttime doesn't make it any better now, does it, Tony? I know exactly what you're talking about. And what Larry said was really spot on, Tony. Now, he was talking about looking at a IFR en route chart because they have their routes predetermined with a minimum, what's called a MRA, a minimum reception altitude, that you must be at this altitude if you want to receive radio reception effectively. So they have that sort of stuff out there. Now, you're not flying any routes or anything like that, but you can be flying in the general area. You don't have to go out and buy an en route chart. Jump on a website like skyvector.com and look at the en route charts and take a look at what those are. If you need help reading any of those, just shoot me an email, and I'm happy to help you with that. That's that. But yeah, I know the feeling of being dropped, especially at night. It is almost a helpless feeling. You're like, dang, this really stinks if I have a problem. I know what you're talking about. Cool. Darren, reading your question. Can you talk about the handoff to your destination airport? When he was flying one time, getting real close to a Class D airspace. I got to hit the see more button here. Hadn't gotten the ATIS, so he went ahead and canceled flight following to hurry up. You're right, Darren. A lot of times going into an uncontrolled airport, they want to make really any airport. Flight following will not hand you off typically until you come back and you tell them you have the airport in sight. So I usually, and it depends what airplane I'm flying, but in the 150, I like to cancel about 10 miles out. And usually 10 miles out is about when you start seeing the airport anyways. So I will call them and say, Jacksonville Approach, Cessna 512 Romeo has the airport in sight. Cessna 512 Romeo, roger, radar services terminated, Squawk VFR, have a great day, see ya. Squawk VFR, and then I can jump in. If you have two radios, grab the ATIS then. If you COM 1, COM 2, grab the ATIS on COM 2, so that way you're a little bit ahead. A lot of times they'll pass you off to a tower, whether you see the airport or not sometimes, and the tower can kind of help you from there. But unless it's busy airspace, they're not going to tell you when to descend. You need to tell them when you need to descend. Occasionally, like when I went up to Kentucky, Lexington was a Class Charlie airport. They needed me at a certain altitude. They told me what altitude to go to. Or maybe the situation was I was looking to descend. They told me, okay, I could descend to 4,000 feet, but no lower. So they had little things like that. But 9 times out of 10, just tell them what you want to do. You are, after all, Darren, the PIC, the pilot in command. Bob had a question. I think this will be the last one I take, so I'm running out of time here. Bob's question, Jason, can you chat about VFR flight following Class Bravo and Charlie airspace? Do I need to gain additional clearance, or is VFR flight following sufficient? Bob, regardless, in Class Bravo airspace, you need to always hear those magic words. Cleared into Class Bravo airspace. Cessna 512 Romeo, cleared into Class Bravo airspace. You have to hear that. So they need to clear in the Bravo. And if they don't, and trust me, I've been kissing the edge of some Bravo before and hadn't got cleared. I finally keyed up the mic and said, hey, Jack's Approach, Cessna 512 Romeo, just want to confirm I'm cleared in this Bravo. Just so it's on record, they did say it, as a matter of fact. There's nothing, I do that sometimes when I'm coming to land. Hey, just want to confirm I'm clear to land. That's a polite way of saying, can I please have my landing clearance? Or a polite way of saying, can I please get cleared into this airspace? As far as Class Charlie airspace goes, you are communicating with somebody, that's good enough. As far as Class Delta goes, you're communicating with them, that's good enough. Now, when you're approaching some restricted airspace and stuff like that, it's important to do that same thing. Chime in and say, hey, Jack's Approach, Cessna 512 Romeo, just want to make sure that I'm clear through restricted area 2905, or, want to make sure 2905 restricted area is cold. It's important. Again, VFR flight following is not required for the controllers to provide to you. They're doing you a favor. Their priority is IFR traffic. You are, it's going to sound bad, but you are second tier to them, unfortunately. It's just the honest truth. These guys are the nicest guys. They're all human. They all have wife, kids. They're just like you guys. But IFR traffic is what they get paid to do. VFR traffic is just a nice thing they're doing for everybody. So anyways, that is that. Let me just press refresh here, make sure I don't have anybody else. I don't want to leave anybody else hanging with questions. If I missed your question for any reason, just hit me up with a email, and I can get that to you there. Tony, you, my friend, are welcome. So anyways, guys, that is it. Any questions, you guys know how to get in touch with me. Send me an email, jason@m0a, that's m, the number 0a.com. If you're a Pilots Inner Circle member, I will have the members-only version out to you shortly of this very call, so you can get your wings credit on like that. And maybe if you guys are interested in becoming Pilots Inner Circle members, you can check out that by going to pilotsinnercircle.com and joining there, so you can kind of check everything out that goes on there. So anyways, guys, that is all the time I have for you today. Any questions I missed, again, please send me an email. I don't mean to leave anybody hanging, but we got to get rolling here. So anyways, guys, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I am so thankful for you guys and all you guys do. Anything I can do for you, again, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. So with that, guys, thank you so much for being just such a blessing to myself, my beautiful wife, and our wonderful business. I really mean it when I say you guys are the reason we get up so early and do what we do each and every day. It's for you guys to create better, safer, smarter pilots. So with that, guys, the most important thing to remember is that a good pilot is always learning. Have a great day, guys. See ya.